Hello everyone, and welcome to the Battle Union's Power Rankings for the post-draft. I am Chaos in the Sky, and I have with me today the great, the mighty. Introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, it is Shroomraver here, and yeah, welcome. Season 3 of the Battle Union is going to kick off very soon. Very excited to be back doing analysis for this season. It is a very exciting time, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I cannot wait. Things are going to be a little different this season. As you can tell, first of all, I'm not Schady. Hooray! Yeah, ban Schady. We finally got it passed. It's going to be me and Shroom doing power rankings. They've kind of been merged with recaps. We'll talk more about that when the videos for that comes out later. For this video specifically, this is just power rankings based on the draft that happened. I'm pretty sure it was uploaded. It was a live draft. But you guys have gotten to see the teams, and now me and Shroom are going to rank the teams in accordance with what we're going to be doing later in the season. There are no longer two lists. Shroom and I got together. We've spent the past hour and 40 minutes putting together an agreed-upon list that we worked out and agreed on. We're pretty much... There may have been where it would have been slightly different if it was two lists, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. Me and Shroom, we have pretty similar looks and whatnot, so it's pretty good to be able to put one list together. But,
it works out, of course, myself and Chaos doing this now because, we have to agree on things, which with Schady, of course, is a little bit difficult.
That would never happen. But anyways, we're going to try and keep this relatively short. We're going to have a timer going for each team so we don't take too long. Don't want a 20-minute look at just one team. But, because we definitely, we spent an hour and 40 minutes looking at this before. I'd like to cut that to, at least, I want this video to be around an hour to 20, somewhere in that range, hopefully.
Yeah,
but
hopefully.
Anyways,
it is going to be difficult. There are 16 teams this season, of course. The roster has expanded somewhat. So hopefully we won't spend too much time going over every single aspect of each team. But yeah, without further ado, I suppose we should just kick off with number 16.
Yes.
So who do we have there?
You all announce evens, you announce odds?
That seems fair.
All right, well, in 16th place, hopefully it's up on the screen of some sort, we have, I believe his YouTube name is just Weavile. We call him Jack, and the Wolverhampton Weaviles.
That's correct.
He is gone. He has got 16th place for this one out of the 16 people. Let me start my timer here. I should probably do that.
Yes.
It's actually, I didn't realize this when we were talking about it, but it's really weird that we have him in 16th because he has Mega Metacham, which is the agreed-upon TBU mon of Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, we should say, being low in these rankings doesn't mean that anyone has drafted badly. It's been very difficult. The reason we took so long making this list is because there are very, very few weak drafts, if any at all.
Yeah, honestly, none of these drafts are something... When we were making it, we couldn't look at a draft and say, oh, well, this one obviously is going to be last or going to be 15th. Yeah. We had to... There were some drafts that we were like, this one is obviously above this one. Yeah, that's how we got into, sections. But once we broke it into, 3 sections, and then we had to go between, 4 or 5 teams to decide where exactly they were out of those, 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But looking at, as we say, Jack's team, he's got some powerful threats along the lines of Mega Metachan. Landrush Therian is in there, Volcarona, dangerous setup mon. And even stuff like Slowking, we've seen put in massive work in other leagues over the past few seasons. Manectric is a cool pick as well. The weaknesses that we saw with this, the big one. No steel, no fairy. Well, no steel. No properly defensive or specially defensive steel. He's got Bisharp in there, who doesn't want to take too many hits. Aggron doesn't take hits on the special side at all.
Aggron doesn't. To be fair, Aggron doesn't really take doesn't take hits on the physical side either, unless it's resisted.
Yeah, not with those 2 quad weaknesses that it's got going on. So yeah, we could be in a bit of trouble there. Crobat is his only form of hazard removal as well. Now
and he has Volcarona.
Yeah, it's difficult because, as we say, there are 16 teams, and hazard removal is very much a priority for a lot of people. So it's difficult to get not only a good one, it's difficult to get any at all in some cases. Crobat is one of the best defoggers going, has to be said.
It is a very good one, but it doesn't want to do it alone.
No, not at all. It really wants some kind of backup and, outside of maybe his Ditto transforming into something like that.
Oh, we never considered that. I don't know why he is in first place. He can just transform into the other teams. What are we talking about?
Of course. But, yeah, that's going to be a bit of a difficulty for him to try and get around.
One of my biggest issues, like you said, was the lack of both a steel and a not a steel, a fairy and a dragon. My mistake. He has steel. They're just they're not the best for the steel role you would want. Aggron, it's Aggron. Mega Aggron is really good at it. Normal Aggron, not so much. Bisharp can switch into some dragon moves, not very much though. Not very often.
Now it should be said, by the way, Aggron was not actually his pick.
Yes, that was his viewer pick.
Something different about the draft this season was that everyone was given a viewer pick, which was voted for by the viewers. They were given a choice of 4, and they voted for which one our teams were given. So Aggron was not actually picked by Jack. That has to be said. It's very
but we're
important
still going to take them into consideration because it is a part of his team.
Yes, very much so. But, some cool things going on in his team. Doug Trio is interesting. He's got a nice trapper there. Sableye, well, Sableye is as Sableye does. It's annoying.
I think one of the coolest things about his team, I think there were like 2 or 3 teams specifically that had this going for them, is he has a lot of different priority options. Sucker Punch, Bisharp, Bullet Punch, Fake Out, Mega Meta, and then Prankster Sableye. A lot of priority options. That's probably the highlight of his team for me, is that. But again, going back to the lack of Fairy and Dragon, especially when there are 16 teams, it's hard to get a Fairy. I know it is. I'm pretty sure just about every Fairy has gone, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't actually sit down and look it out, but I'm pretty sure most, if not all of them, are gone. And I could overlook him not having a Fairy, but not having a good Steel type to help with dragons when you don't have a Fairy, and then also on top of that, not having a dragon to take advantage of the other teams having trouble getting fairies, just like you yourself are having, just seems like such a big waste to me. And you could have gotten a dragon if Alex managed to get 3 of them.
Yes, this is true. Alex went triple Dragon Core, but of course we'll talk about Alex sort of later on a little bit. But yeah, Jack, I think he might struggle with the hazards. He might also struggle with that flying spam, which is so prevalent. A lot of people enjoy it.
I know that I think Staraptor, Honchkrow, and Braviary were all drafted. Those were the 3 premier physical birds, and then both Torns were drafted. A lot of other flying types that normally aren't as offensive have been drafted, like Moltres and whatnot. Well, Moltres is offensive, but isn't as often seen, is what I meant. Was also drafted, so.
Yeah, he's got 3 resistances to it. One's Aggron, one's the Bisharp, and one is the Manectric.
None of which want to be taking a lot of hits.
Yeah, this is true. But, he's got some powerful threats going on there. Mega Medicham is something that we cannot overlook. We absolutely can't. And some of these sleeper threats, Slowking, Venusaur. Venusaur can be very powerful if it's set up the right way and if it's got the right moveset. So, and Crobat as well. Can be banded and do horrible things with its own Brave Bird, which is quite cool. So yeah, Jack sits at 16th for now. Obviously, these things can change week on week, and we'll just have to wait and see exactly how he utilizes this team. He's got some nice gimmicks. He's got some cool stuff. So we wait and see exactly how he's going to use it.
We need to move to 15.
Yes, we do. And I'll just intro that one. 15, that's going to be Jedi. Jedi Cadet and his name Western Weaving.
I'm sorry, you said Jedi and the world was like, no! And Skype just killed you, but you immediately fixed yourself.
Well, one of the people who's going to be most surprised about this was Jedi himself, who did say he'd be disappointed if he wasn't 16th. So Jedi, we're sorry. A strange team. A very strange team.
I clicked back onto his team tab and it hurts to look at.
People raised eyebrows when the mega pick was done the day before the actual live draft. His first 2 picks of the draft, Raikou and then Rotom Mo, people were confused. 2 electric types, both doing similar volt switchy things. Interesting to see how he's going to use that. But he's got some...
when I pointed out to Shroom specifically, I believe Roserade was available at the same time and was he would have been able to fit it into his budget, if we're not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. But Jedi is as Jedi does. He picks these strange things, and sometimes he does make them work. He's got some very nice stuff there. Mienshao. Mienshao going to hit like a truck. Jinx round 4. That was interesting.
Trying to one-up the Marowak.
Well, I think he's trying to one-up himself by having taken Mr. Mime last time.
I try and forget that.
Don't we all? But he actually got some really cool stuff late on in the draft. He actually strengthened it quite a lot. Round 6 to 8, taking Jellicent, Aromatisse, and then the round 8 Latias from out of nowhere.
I definitely think his best picks were his first and then his last 3, not counting the bench.
Bench stuff as well.
Mienshao is really good too, though.
Mienshao is one of those fighting types that sometimes I think gets overlooked a little bit at your peril, because that reckless high jump kick is going to hurt.
Ooh,
a
yeah,
lot.
I had to prep for one once. It was not fun.
Mm. Yeah, and he's got some cool offensive mons. Those last three, the bench picks, Aerodactyl, Durant, and then he was given Cinccino, which is an interesting one. Be interesting to see how he uses that. They can be threats in their own right. It's not a conventional team. It's a Jedi team. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how he uses it. As ever, always exciting to see Jedi use his teams going forward. I think he might do better than he did last time he was in the Battle Union. I think he's slightly better off.
Just on experience alone, he should. But
yeah.
I don't remember his first season team. I do remember him being bad, so hopefully this is better than his first season team.
We'll wait and see.
One of the things I don't like the most is, again, the double electric. I don't really see a point in Rotomo being on this team when other grass types were available. I also don't think Rotomo is a round 2 pick in general. Honestly, I think it's more 3rd and 4th round. He's got like good Fairy and Dragon there with the Romantis and Latias, 2 very good mons at what they do. And then Durant is a steel type. It's like, what is
Yeah.
I mean, Durant, it can hit hard. It's not going to do anything else other than that, and it's hard for it to do that because of its speed and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's not a horrible draft. It's just not as good as most of the others, honestly. Because, I mean, like, also his hazard removal. He's got Magic Bounce Mega Absol, which you have to Mega to have, and then he's got Defog Latias and Defog Gliscor.
And Gliscor doesn't want to be running Defog without, because it can't have Poison Heal.
Yeah.
When you're doing that. Latias, Latias is a perfectly good defogger, fair enough.
Latias is one of the best defoggers. I'd put it like top 3, probably.
Yeah,
it's really good at it, but at the same time, it's nice to be able to not have defog Latias. But Jedi's never... Also, it's nice to not have to bring Latias every week, despite how solid of a mon it is. Sometimes, like against Triple Dragon Core, what's his face? Alex, you might not want to bring a dragon, but, you know, that's your only way to defog when he has a Garchomp that can Stealth Rock.
Yeah, but Jedi is nothing if not innovative, so it's going to be exciting to see what he's going to do with this draft with some pretty unconventional stuff going on in it.
Yes, definitely. I want him to prove us wrong and get higher in the rankings, but I feel like it'll be hard to do with this team. Also, you know, he has to be sure not to switch Absol into Draco Meteor. That's always a problem, I hear.
Very much so. Very much so. We have heard that doesn't necessarily go so well. Shout-outs to Roy Quinn.
All right, let's move on to 14, which is going to be Quill and the Juventes. Is that how I pronounce it? Juventes?
That is correct, Juventes.
Yes, Quill and the Juventes take 14th place in the power rankings. Man, on first glance, this draft is terrifying. He has Sticky Webs Galvantula, and then he has Zardwai, Excadrill, Togekiss for Alligator, etc. Lots of mons that appreciate everything else being slower than them. Metacham, T-Tar. T-Tar is one of those mons where, like, it's really terrifying, especially when it gets a DD up, and when it gets the second one up, it's just, like, unstoppable, because that's the speed it needs at, 61 base speed. With Sticky Webs, it really only needs the one D-Dance to just tear it up, and that makes it even scarier. But at the same time, it's hard, he has the whole Sticky Web thing going, but he has to bring Sticky Webs every week to make use of that. He has to bring Galvantula every week. And not only that, but, Galvantula is one of those mons. It gets Sticky Webs up and normally sacrifices its life to get that done. And then all it takes is one hazard removal, and then your whole entire, gimmick of all of these mons destroy if you're -1 is gone.
Yeah, we've historically seen in draft format people not getting a lot of joy out of Sticky Web. It seems to be fairly difficult to use effectively. And we're going to have to see if Quill can get around that. He was using some pretty useful stuff last season, so maybe he can make the most of it, especially when he's got the likes of Sandrush, Excadrill, and Chlorophyll Shiftry to go along with it. One of my main issues with this draft, whilst it's very terrifying on paper, is the fact that there is just so much going on with it. Is Quill going to be able to control that? Hard as it is to prep for double weather and for Alligator and Galvantula and all this stuff, is he going to be able every week to bring the right stuff? It's going to be difficult for him to choose what to go with here, I think.
I feel like his draft is going to be a draft that suffers Altaria syndrome.
Yes.
Because,
I would agree.
normally when you talk about things having trouble on what it needs to do or what it needs to be or bring, Mega Altaria is one of the first things that comes to mind. Because Mega Altaria has a very bad history of, oh my goodness, it did amazing in this match because it had the exact right set. But then in this match it was 0-1, didn't do anything because it brought the wrong set.
Yeah. With Quill, that's sort of exacerbated by the fact that is he going to bring the right team?
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's got like several teams in one here.
He also
so
has
it's going
a
to be
bit
difficult.
of a problem with defense. Like, he's more offensive. Like, his main thing is he's got a lot of offensive that really appreciates sticky webs. Without the sticky webs, they don't appreciate as much. A lot of stuff can outspeed it. His fastest is the sticky web setter with 108. Everything else is base 100 or lower, which is not a good position to be in. And then on top of that, you've got he doesn't have a lot of options for switch-ins. Like, his bulkiest mons were the 3 he got in a row, Chestnut, Miltank, and Druddigan. Miltank and Druddigan really good at taking hits, as is Chestnut. Chestnut has that pretty bad 4 times weakness of flying. A lot of things get aerial ace. And I just feel like he's going to have trouble with... It's going to be a matter of who pokes the hole in who first. Will Quill bring the right team and take out his opponents quick enough? Or will the other team be able to counter him well enough and take down the mons he needs to win?
Yeah, and looking at those 3 bulky mons, and of course also shout out to Togekiss, who can be bulky as well.
Oh yeah, Togekiss.
I worry about his ice weakness. I really do. You know, Miltank with thick fat, sure, but Druddigan, Chestnut, Togekiss, his bulky mons, they don't like ice. A lot of his other stuff doesn't like ice.
Yeah, so, it can definitely be a big problem. He doesn't have, even the things that don't mind ice as much, don't really resist it. Like Exca and Mega Zard-Y, they're both neutral to it, so it's not really switching. Galvantula doesn't like to switch into anything in the world. Splash can 2-hit KO Galvantula at this point. Feraligatr is probably really his only option, which can work. It can give Feraligatr a chance to set up as long as it's not freeze dry.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just, ice will be a problem for him, as it usually is for a lot of... Most teams end up having a trouble with either ice or, I think, electric. I think those are the 2 most common that you end up having trouble with. But, or ghost, but that's another thing altogether. But yeah, that's why Quill is in 14th.
Yeah, but, with that team, we have said he's got a lot of power, a lot of options. If he can bring the right teams to the right games, he'll be rising up these rankings very quickly.
Hopefully. I hope to see it. I want to be proven wrong on all accounts. And
yes,
to see
absolutely.
people do amazing.
Indeed. So, moving on from Quill to number 13, and we are going to have the beloved Sizz and the Somerset Scissors sitting in at 13th. This team, it kind of looked, which I think it was, that he got through his draft.
Shroom, stop trying to sugarcoat it. The guy dropped Victini. I don't know why he isn't in 18th. Like, come on.
He did drop Victini, picked up Azumarill to drop Victini. Azumarill works pretty well with this team. We don't notice that on the bench he does have that Politoed. This was kind of trying to get to the point of that he's picked up this Politoed, having looked at his draft and gone, hang on, Rain could work with this, and it could. But Rain gives you so many things that you can do. It enables you to do so many things. And 2 of the big things that Rain allows you to do, Sizz doesn't have. He doesn't have Swift Swim. He doesn't have Hurricane. He's got these kind of more gimmicky ones. The Hydration Goodra, the Dry Skin Toxicroak, the weakening of Fire Move, against the Mega Scizor, and the powering up of Azumarill. So he's got these kind of options, but it seems like it's a Rain team that's been put together without wanting to be a Rain team, is what I'm trying to get at here. And if he's going to use Rain to go against some of the other weather we've seen, he's got a Licky with Cloud9 and the ability to stall. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he utilizes Rain, if indeed he does. But yeah, I mean, shout out to him having Shuckle in his bench voted pick. We like it. We both want to see him use it well. So, do that, Sizz.
Did you say we like it? I don't like Shuckle. No.
Well, we want to
I hope to see him use it well. That doesn't mean I like them on. I'm not a fan of Shuckle. But, oh man, I don't have a whole lot to say against this. I forgot to start my timer, dang it. So we're going to, I don't know how much time we have.
We'll go on the fly.
We'll spitball it.
Shout out to him having Torkoal again, by the way.
Yeah, he's got Torkoal again. Man, I don't know. Sizz's team is one of those that's just so unconventional looking. It doesn't really fit into the normal mold for me. Like, I just look at it and it looks weird. I don't know why. It just does. He doesn't have a bulky water. He's got a Azumarill and Politoed. Not really. I mean, Politoed can kind of be bulky, but you know what I mean. It's not like
Yeah.
You know, you say bulky water, you don't think Politoed. You think Melodic, Jellicent, Tentacruel, Vaporeon, etc. Not Politoed.
Yeah.
If he doesn't run Hypnosis at least 3 times this week, then he's dead to me. Goodra, like you said, Goodra doesn't really... I mean, Rain Hydration can help with rest, I guess, so that Goodra actually has recovery. But other than that, Goodra rarely cares about being statused. The only, like, Burn doesn't really matter to it unless it's gotten or Thunder Wave. Neither of those really matter to it unless it's a physical set. Toxic, normal poison basically means nothing as well. Toxic can kind of be annoying, but it's not a huge detriment. Nothing that like kills Goodra or anything usually.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a really drawn out battle going, and I don't see a really drawn out battle going with the guy who has Mamo, Azu, and Mega Sizz.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I would say about this team is that it kind of suffers from Quill syndrome. He's got the sticky web. His team is super slow. Other than Jolteon, his team is very, very slow.
His team is so slow that I don't think Sticky Web can even help him that much.
Well, that is going to be a problem. Is Sticky Web going to help him out at all? Is going to be the question. We ask. Yeah, Mamoswine will take advantage of it. Of course it will.
Mamoswine is like, you look at his team, Mamoswine and potentially Goodra. Azumarill I think is too slow. Licky Licky is too slow. Jolteon doesn't care about it anyways.
Maybe a setup Scrafty.
Setup Scrafty, it gets D-Dance, right? That could potentially help it. It still needs like 2 D-Dances to outspeed stuff. Isn't it like base 40 or something?
It is slow. Very slow.
Yeah, it's very slow. It's still, even with Sticky Webs, I feel like it's still like, we talked about T-Tar. T-Tar normally needs 2. With Sticky Webs, it only really needs 1. Scrafty, I feel, still needs 2. And it's really hard, especially when you've got a quad weakness to Fairy, and you're weak to stuff like offensive flying and whatnot, and fighting common types. It's really hard to get more. It's really hard to get just 1 setup, let alone 2.
Yeah.
But a lot of his team is so slow that Sticky Webs won't even matter that much. Obviously, like we said, Mamoswine and to an extent Goodra, maybe even Mega Sizz, it can really help out, but overall, it's not going to be a huge boon for him like it is for Quill, who has Feraligatr, Zard Y, etc.
Yeah, precisely.
But yeah, do you have anything else to say? I think that's about all I've got.
Not particularly on Sizz. As ever, we love Sizz and we want to see him. We want to see him do well with the team he's got, and hopefully he can.
Victini. Everyone knows I'm one of the biggest advocates for Victini. It is, in my opinion, the best mon in draft format. But even I can agree that I can see the reason for picking up Azu. I can see the reason.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it, but I see the reason. I'm not going to completely hate on Sizz for it, but it does kind of muddle my opinion of his team a bit. Moving on to 12th place, we have Riz and the Phoenix Sunflora. What's it? It's like Baby Power Riz or something. What's his full name? Do you know?
I'm not sure. We just call him Riz.
Yeah, we just call him Riz. I know he has, like, his YouTube name is longer or something, but I cannot remember it for the life of me. But he's the Phoenix Sunfloras. Make sure I start right this time. Rizzy Pow, that's it. Why did I say Baby? I was thinking of Baby Eye.
That's Baby Eye.
Yeah, Rizzy Pow, that's it. So we've got him in 12th place. We're getting closer to the mid-section here. This is where the team started to get a little higher class, in my opinion. In fact, this is probably the team that I would say... This is the last team that we had where we agreed it would be in the bottom half, and then the others we kind of had to fight for a little bit. No, wait, there's 11th as well. We kind of agreed would be in last, or in the bottom. But after that, it's kind of we had to fight for the teams to be where they are. Riz is the guy who drafted stall to semi-stall, as I like to call it. I won't call his team full-on stall because he has Megaladios and Houndoom and Tornadus Eye and Lucario, but it's... Holy cow. He got Megaladios for his Mega Pick, and then Clefable, Jirachi, which is an amazing Dragon Fairy Seal, probably the second best in the league right now from what we agreed on. And then he got Suicune, and then Nidoqueen, and then Snorlax. The bulk just kept coming up until Tornadus Eye, who, to be fair, is not like bulky, but he can take a hit bulky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then Houndoom, and then I think he got Poliwrath, and then his bench picks were Kabutops and Lucario. His viewer pick was Abomasnow, which we're not even going to bring up because Abomasnow does nothing for this team at all.
Yeah, Riz really lost out on the viewer pick. I think we would agree. He probably got the weakest of the viewer picks, which, again, out of his control.
Yeah, it's out of his control. Abomasnow does nothing for this team, in my opinion. Absolutely nothing. I don't see it ever doing anything other than the fact that it's a grass type. He didn't have a grass type, but you don't want that grass type.
If he can make it work, more power to him.
Exactly. If he can, great. I just don't see it happening. He's got to prove me wrong. Which you'll hear me say a lot. I write off a lot of stuff and then say, you know what, prove me wrong.
Yeah. This team, this squad looks to me as though it was sort of, it started with this sort of semi-stall drafting process of lots of bulk. And then he kind of got into the second half, and it looks like he tried to draft Rain, but couldn't get Rain, as it were. You've got Tornadus, Poliwrath, Kabutops. They love Rain. If he can make Rain work, then yeah, go for it. Why not?
He does have Prankster Rain Dance with Tornadus.
He does. He really does.
That's the thing that happens a lot in VGC, except it's normally Thunderous Eye, but Tornadus Eye can do it.
Yeah. I worry a little bit about his sort of wall-breaking prowess. Nidoqueen can do it, not to the same extent as Nidoking. Mega Latios can be very powerful. Lucario is going to be a very good bet. But it's whether he can muscle his way through some of the other very bulky drafts is going to be one to see. I
also feel like a lot of his mons are in ruts. We talked about this earlier. A lot of his mons are really set to 1 or 2 roles. And they've tried to break out before, and in some cases it's worked. In a lot of cases it doesn't. Like Suicune. People try and break out with Suicune all the time and make it do different stuff. It doesn't work a lot of the time. And similar for Snorlax. He's either Rest Talk or he curses up. Or both at the same time.
Yeah,
and then
or an
Nidoqueen either tries to be Nidoking and does it decently, but not as well as Nidoking, or it tries to be bulky version of Nidoking that can set up T-Spikes and Stealth Rocks and whatnot. Jirachi tries to either be a Choice Scarfer that flinches you and makes you upset, or it T-Waves you, or it just U-turns consistently. And then Clefable just tries to be bulky and recover itself and set up.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a lot of things that just do the same things that will be a little easier to predict, and it's hard to break away from those roles, because the Mons are in those roles and in those ruts because they do it well, but in leagues like this, especially when you have so many Mons that are in that position, you have to find a way to break out of it, or you're going to become too predictable.
Yeah, and, while I say that it might be a bit difficult for Riz to try and break down some of the other bulkier drafts, on the flip side, how are people going to break down him?
Yes,
that's going to be difficult.
It is, but, I feel like setup is going to be something Riz runs into a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be one of his main things to try and deal with. He does, of course, have the Unaware Clefable and various phasing options, which I think he's going to have to use quite a lot this season.
Yep. Well, we need to move on to 11 now.
Yes, we do. And at number 11, we are going to have Bub. Bub and Munchlaxter United coming in at 11. Now, there are aspects of this draft that I love. Mega Gallade, Whimsicott, Uxie. I've had them all in one season, and I've loved using them. Mega Gallade especially is terrifying to try and go against. Very, very powerful, very offensive, and he's got a lot of good offense going on here as well. Supplement that with Infernape. Supplement that with Adaptability Dragalge. That's going to really hurt. Escavalier can do it as well. Excuse me, bit of a cough. Yeah, there's a lot of aspects of his team that I really enjoy. He's also got one of the great defogs in the form of Scarm. Good hazard options as well. Yeah, what else do we have to say on this one?
Going on, the great hazard removal of Scarm, that's the end of his hazard removal. Other than defog Braviary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't count that. It's
of course
Braviary isn't. It can't do it well enough, in my opinion. But, I mean, in niche situations it can, but I would never go into a draft thinking, oh, don't worry, I've got Braviary to defog in the back.
Yeah, we've seen that happen before as well in other drafts where Braviary has been one of people's few defog options and it just hasn't quite worked. There's an argument to be made for it, a nice sort of specially defensive bulk up roosting defogging set.
Okay, no, you stop. No, I'm done talking with you. I'm taking over now. Bub is kind of the start of where we didn't know who was going to be the top and who was going to be the bottom of the list, and we're not even at the halfway point, so that's saying something about the draft this season. He was kind of the last one they were like, yeah, we're going to end up having to put him on the bottom, because his team is a little, I don't really know how to put it, like inconsistent doesn't sound like the right word, but it's the word that comes to mind. He's got a lot of options, but I just don't see the synergy that well.
Yeah. There's a few sort of weaknesses that he doesn't really want to go up against. He's got 2 steel types to try and deal with the fairies, but his poison type is part dragon, his fire type is part fighting. So he's not going to particularly enjoy fairy spam, especially once those steel types have gone down.
Both of those steel types are also very, very susceptible to fire, special fire specifically.
Yeah. and general special offense. Skarmory not to too much of an extent, but
Not
his
too
Escavalier
bad.
doesn't have
Because
the
of their
greatest.
resistances, it kind of makes up for it. But Skarmory doesn't want to be taking a ton of Scalds either. Scalds normally 3-hit
Yeah.
KO Skarm.
Yeah, but then he does have these other ridiculously bulky things. He's got a Dusknoir, who is crazy bulky. Uxie is spectacularly bulky. Rotom Wash has good defenses on both sides as well. So he's got these general bulky things to kind of supplement those ones that we mentioned already.
I just feel like he's going to have trouble capitalizing on switching between his bulk and his offense, is my main problem.
Maybe,
I feel like that's going to be a difficulty because he does have initiative with Infernape and Rotom Wash to get into Gallade and Crook and whatnot. But just overall, switching between them and Uxie as well for a slow U-turn. So, see, it's a good draft. It is a good draft. This is where it started to get difficult to put people in positions because everyone has good drafts. But I just don't see the synergy, man. I see him having difficulties with different things, trying to make everything work together.
Potentially, yeah. But he does have a lot of potential with it. We've talked about a lot of drafts not having a lot of speed. He certainly doesn't suffer from that. Made Gallade, Crook's pretty nippy. Infernape, Whimsicott, Sceptile was his bench voted pick, which gives him a lot of speed as well.
I hope he does well with normal Sep. I love Sceptile.
Definitely. Very cool mon. Lots of cool options. Can go mixed. Has Unburden. Really cool, nice options for him to go with there. Yeah. A kind of weird one. We've seen a fair few weird drafts, I think we would say. But I think he can capitalize with some pretty good offense.
Something else I can throw in here. I haven't been able to talk much about Bub, but there were a couple of teams I wasn't able to put a lot of time into analyzing. Bub was one of the 3 or 4. Something that I'm noticing now is his defensive walls are defensive walls. They're not going to be doing a lot back. A few of them, like Uxie, can get initiative. Rotom Wash, Hydro Pump, it'll do a good amount, depending on if the opponent resists it or not. Skarmory, Iron Head, meh. Base 80 attack, normally not going to be invested in attack, normally HP and Spadef or defense. And then, his offensive mons aren't very bulky. He's kind of got, big defense, big offense, no middling ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's they hit hard and they take hits hard, or they don't hit hard and they don't get hit hard, for the most part. There are some small exceptions if you run the sets right and your matchup is correct. But for the most part, that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, this could be a draft where Bob's really going to have to get into the head of his opponents and get his doubling game on point. He's got to be making the right switches at the right time.
Yep, I agree. But anyways, let's move on. Do you announce the next one? I think I'm Evans. I announced the next one. My bad. I got it.
This.
Next, for 10th, we have Xenon and the Sublime Salamence. I'm sorry, Xenon. This name is bad. Xenon, this is where we really started to get to where, we've got to fight for who's above who. We started, breaking it down into groups of 2 or 3 and being this one's above this one and this one's above this one after, 5 minutes of debate. Xenon, unfortunately, ended up being the 10th. So, Xenon... I do really like Xenon's draft. I was fighting for Xenon a good bit, but Shroom eventually talked me down a little. Mega Diancie, Weavile, Serperior, Metagross, Tornadus T, just a bunch of scary, scary names. Hydreigon. What eventually really lowered Xenon down is his bulk is not that great. He's got to focus a lot more on defense. Metagross is pretty good bulky. Tentacruel, not very good defensively, and that's his bulky water. He dropped Milo for Tentacruel, which I understand needing another rapid spinner because I think his only one was Claydol, which sucked. But I would never take Tenta over Melodic, even if I needed rapid spinning.
I mean, he was definitely put in a tough spot there because with Claydol as your only form of hazard removal, unless you're going against Lars, El Sizzle might not be putting in as much work as you want it to.
It scares me just thinking about only having Claydol as rapid spin.
So that was, a decision that I feel like he had to make. And if you're going to try and replace your bulky water, Tentacruel is an able replacement.
No, I definitely agree. Tentacruel is not a bad mon. I like Tentacruel. I'm cool with it. Just never over Melodic.
Yeah, definitely. This, as we say, his hand was kind of forced, but it does sort of give him a bit more of a weakness than I think he would like. But yeah, that scary, scary offense that Chaos has talked about. Mega Diancie, Weavile, Superior. Metagross, Torn, Hydreigon, Tauros is there as well, let us not forget. Hariyama, proven in the format. Really good pickup for around 7 picks.
a lot of times what you see in drafts is speed is one of the biggest problems, because a lot of people end up leaning towards either semi-stall or bulky offense, and those are normally really slow play styles. I feel like he's kind of in between bulky offense and hyper offense, because he has a lot of speed, which can really help him. But at the same time, his defenses are not that he doesn't have bad defenses per se. But I mean, he's got Metagross for defensively speaking. Metagross doesn't really want to take special hits. Also, would like to run offensive more than it usually can. Tentacruel can't take an earthquake to save its life. Really common coverage. Then you've got Claydol, which is bad. Hariyama, which relies like entirely on its HP stat, which isn't bad really, but can really make it hard to work with. And that's pretty much the end of his defense. Everything else can like maybe take a hit or two, or can't, like Weavile, but most everything else can only take maybe one hit.
Yeah, like Mega Diance's got the good stats, but it's got so many weaknesses by dint of its typing. I think he's going to have to get quite creative with his defense. You know, we've seen people run in the past things like defensive Hydreigon, which can work in a certain situation. Tauros, again, can be a decent bulky doubling pivot with the Intimidate. Xenon's going to have to get creative. He's going to have to get his thinking cap on, but he's Xenon. He can do these things. He's proven that he can do these things in the past. Let's see if he can do it with this draft, basically.
Yeah.
So, I guess we can move on from Xenon.
Let's move on to number 9.
Into number 9. Yeah, up into number 9, we have Eric, Ashton Akai, and the Bristol Bedoofs.
I want before we start this, I want Eric to know specifically that I fought for you, Eric. Shroom had you down at like 13th, and I have gotten you all the way up to 9th. I, tooth and nail, convinced Shroom that you needed to be higher, and here you are at 9th. Yeah,
and, you know, Chaos used your team to prove that you should be higher on the list, and so it has happened. Now, it has to be said, one of the reasons that I wanted to put Eric a bit lower, he was sniped to hell and back in this draft. He got very little of what he initially wanted. He had to make a lot of plans on the fly. But what he's done very well is built on that, put some nice stuff together, and used the sort of free time picking and dropping point to get some pretty interesting stuff. Like, he has managed to pick up Milotic, which, I don't know, has Eric used Milotic before? I feel like he might have used Milotic before.
No, I think he's pretty new to it. What did he drop? Do you remember what he dropped for Milotic? Because when Milotic was dropped by Xenon, Eric immediately dropped something and picked it up.
He did. I can't remember what he dropped, actually.
Neither can I. All I know is that it's an improvement.
Yes, yeah, and Milotic is a brilliant pickup for someone who knows how to use it incredibly well. It's a very good Pokemon for him to get. He's got some very nice, cool things that you don't see used very often. His bench voted pick is one of my favorite bench voted picks. He got Ninjask.
I really want to see Ninjask be used well.
Oh, I love it.
Not just as a baton passer. I want to see it do. I want it to be the Excelgor of this season for Eric.
Yeah, and you know he's got a few big weaknesses that are supplemented with some nice resists. The one I want to pick up on is Fire. He's got a big weakness to it, but he's got a lot of resistances as well. And depending on how this goes, people might be able to take advantage of that. You know,
or Eric can take advantage of it.
Yes, he can. He's got the likes of Chandelure who will put people off from going for it.
Not only that, but if you get Mega Altaria in on a fire type that it can resist and take well, D-Dance City. Or Cotton Guard City, whichever you feel like.
Whichever city you want to visit.
Altaria can get to them all.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Top of the draft looks very threatening. Mega Altaria, Zapdos, Milotic, Reuniclus. My goodness, Reuniclus is incredibly good. I hope you can't hear that. The phone's ringing. That's very selfish of it. I'm going to let it go to voicemail.
No, it's good. It's not coming through.
Excellent. But yeah, Reuniclus, very dangerous. One of, if not the best defensive Trick Room user in the format. And then I would
even say in the game.
Yeah, definitely one of them. And then he's got some nukes, you know. Hitmonlee, if it gets up in the right way, can be very dangerous. Exploud, Boom Burst, all of the things. And the Trixie Life Pod coming in at the round 8 pick. So, you know, for a draft that he didn't initially want, he's put together something pretty useful. And he's used his free pickups very effectively, you know, getting the likes of Milotic.
Yeah.
Will have been huge for him, you know, for a team that he didn't necessarily want all the members of. To have Milotic, that's going to really bring him some calmness.
Normal.
You know, and he's going to, I think, that will really help him out. But, you know, as we have to say, it'll be interesting to see how he uses a team that he didn't necessarily want in the first place.
Yeah, I've got like 45 seconds here, so I'm going to try and get some points in really quick.
Sorry.
It's like you said, he has the fire weakness, and when you first said that, I reassessed and looked over it again, like, oh yeah, he does have that. But then, as I pointed out, Melodic can take pretty much any fire hit. There are a few fire mons that want to take on Melodic unless they have electric coverage and occasionally grass coverage, but electric coverage. And then you've got Mega Altaria for that, and it can normally set up as a result afterwards. And then I pointed out something else that could take. Chandelure can take fire and get flash fire boost. Not only can it switch in to take the fire hits, but it makes people more likely to not want to go for the fire hits, because no one wants to deal with flash fire boosted fire blast Chandelure. No one. Unless you have your own flash fire mon. It's just not, no. It hurts. It's painful. Then he's got X-Cloud and Hitmonlee, the kind of mons that you think like, oh, they can be a super threat if they're used right. And I think that Eric, with the experience he's got, and Eric is one of the most experienced people in this league, from how many different leagues he's been in, I think that he can make them work. And then also Amoonguss is great. He's got Chandelure, Amoonguss, and Melodic for Fire, Water, Grass. Two really bulky, decent mons that can do chip damage, and then one really powerful one. Mega Altaria is a good fairy and dragon. It's got the Altaria syndrome, as we've spoken of. But again, Eric's experience, I think he could be one of the few people to do better rather than worse with it. And of course, we haven't talked much about Zapdos, but what is there really to say other than it's Zapdos?
Yeah, one of the best defoggers, can go very offensive, base 100 speed is lovely, bulky, powerful. Yeah, great pick.
All right, let's move on. We need to start picking it up a bit. Next, we have Dan and the St. Louis Sableyes in 8th, just barely above Eric. This was probably the closest argument we had when it came to our rankings of putting Dan above Eric. Because we had a lot of trouble on which of the two drafts was better, because they're both very solid. And, you know, this is where it turns. This is where we get from, like, the drafts that were a little less, like, a little more underwhelming to the more overwhelming drafts. And I feel like Eric and Dan, both, they could be interchangeable almost. They're both where they belong. Yeah. He's got Mega Audino, very bulky. We know Mega Audino, which is still criminally underpriced, as Shroom likes to point out. Mega Audino is a pain to deal with. Thunderous Eye, one of the best electric types in the format, possibly arguably the best, with Prankster and 111 speed, good special attack and physical attack. Its defenses aren't great, but it can take a hit and still keep going. It's got setup options. Greninja, Torrent, you know, it's Torrent. It's not as good as normal Greninja, but it does have the ORS moves, I believe, since it's Torrent rather than, you know, XY. Yeah. I would probably argue that XY is better than Torrent, but still, it's a good mon regardless. Imbor hits like a truck, as we all know, very painful. Honchkrow, one of the best birds in the format, in my opinion. It and Staraptor are really up there for me as, like, the best birds there are. Sucker Punch, very nice. Moxie, great. Excelgor, which is amazing, and we would give him points just flat out for having Excelgor, but his viewer pick is Quagsire, so that's kind of negated for having, like, the best thing from last season and the worst thing from last season. Then we get into his hazard removal. Salamence, great dragon, can be bulky, can be offensive, good defogger. Then he's got Hitmontop, which for me personally, in my opinion, is the best spinner in League format if it fits the team right. I mean, you know, obviously sometimes it depends on the team, but for me, just flat out, for rapid spinning specifically, I always want Hitmontop over everything else. And he's got a great defogger, definitely not the best defogger, but a good one. And he's got a really good spinner. And he's got Greninja is his water type. You would think, oh, not a bulky water. He's going to have trouble with that. But then he's got Gyarados, which isn't your conventional bulky water, but it can do it. Base 95 HP with 100 Spadef, 79 defense with Intimidate. It can do it if it needs to.
I mean, I loved using Gyarados in a defensive role. It really put in the work. But of course, as with Salamence, it doesn't have to be defensive. Yeah, exactly. Both of these mons have Intimidate and Moxie. You know, both have Dragon Dance.
He has 3 monster mons, I just realized.
He does. Where's the third?
Honchkrow.
So he does.
Yeah, he's got
3 Moxie mons. Not bad. He also has, as we mentioned before we recorded this, he has the double water Shuriken core. Greninja and Excelgor.
Unstoppable. Also, back to talking about how, you know, bird spam is really good in League format because, you know, not many people have things for birds. He has one of probably the best bird stop, or one of the best, in Regirock. He's already taken off the table one of the things that can stop his Honchkrow, which is, you know, really good.
And he's got stupid, crazy bulk in the form of Spiritomb as well. who just eats hits for days and days and days.
Yep.
A good amount of Intimidate going on there. 3 potential Intimidate users, if I'm not mistaken. Mega
Salamence, Gyarados, and Hitmontop.
Yep.
Yeah. He's got...
Mega Ordino is stupidly bulky, and I love it. Thunderous Incarna, I think, is the best electric type in the format, personally.
I definitely put it up there. It's definitely in my top 3. I'm not sure if I'd put it first. I'd have to sit down and think about it.
That's fair. And then you've got Emboar, who just kills things.
Yeah, basically. I feel like, looking at it now, again, Dan has a bit of a trouble. I don't know who we were talking about earlier. I think it was Bub, where he's got, like, his Mons. He's got the defense Mons. He's got the offensive Mons, excluding, like, Salamence and Gyarados. To an extent, he's kind of got that going, because Emboar, Honchkrow, can, like, take a hit or two, but don't really want to. And then you've got Greninja and Thundurus, who don't want to take hits, period, pretty much. And then you've got, Mega Audino, Spiritomb, Regirock can't really do a whole lot back, but they can take hits. But I don't think his is as serious as Bub's, and he can make it work a lot better.
I think the main thing Dan has over Bub is those 3 you mentioned, Mega Ordino, Hitmontop, and Spiritomb, they can set up, and they can take the hits while they're doing it. So they can become threats. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe aside from Hitmontop, unless it gets bulk up, they all have defensive setup, which I think is incredibly potent in this format. Defensive setup is one of the best forms. I think he can make that work. Maybe to an extent a tiny bit better than Bob can. Hopefully, for his sake, he can do it.
Yep. To try and make up some time, I'm going to cut this one a little short. We need to move on to
That
7.
seems fair. We'll move on, to number 7. And sitting at number 7 is going to be Monotui, our very own Mono, and the Tampa Bay Luxrays. Now, some powerful threats going on. The top 4 of his draft are unbelievable. Mega Blastoise, Kyurem Black, Scolipede, Cresselia.
Pay very close attention to that third one, Scolipede. That's where you need to look.
TBU, those...
Really quick, just so we can put it into perspective, TBU has an updated version of Smogon. Smogon has that new clause. Well, it's not really new anymore, but relatively new, of baton passing, that you can't do speed in another stat. The TBU does not have that rule, I believe. I believe they have you can't do +2 stats with speed.
Yeah.
So Swords Dance is kind of out, as is Iron Defense, but I think Scolipede's speed can be easily passed along with a few other things, and Scolipede can just, in general, be a mon on its own that does well.
Yeah, absolutely. Passing speed in the likes of Kyurem Black, even as I was saying to Kate earlier, Mega Blastoise with speed is going to be potent. Very potent. However, after Cresselia, we figured it kind of falls down a little bit. Gligar, Magneton's fine. Diancie has a lot of weaknesses. Golurk, I've never rated Golurk, but that's just me. Ordino will never be as good as its mega counterpart. Zoroark will give you Zoroark. Very good mon, very tricksy. He's going to be able to pull a lot of shenanigans with it. And then Virizion and the bench motor pick of Typhlosion, which he needed as his fire type. But this seems to be a case of a draft that started incredibly well, and maybe apart from a few isolated areas, kind of tailed off a little bit.
It was basically, you've got the top 4, counting the Mega Pick. Mega Blastoise, Kyurem Black, Scolipede. Perfection. Just speed passing into those 2. I wasn't as sold on Blastoise at first, but Shroom really sold me on Blastoise, like I sold him on Eric's team. And then Cresselia, we all hate Cresselia. There's not a person, I don't think there's really, honestly, a person that likes to see Cresselia used or have to go against it, if you're being honest with yourself. But
I guess it fits fairly well with Mono then, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But we all hate it for a reason. It's because it's good at what it does, unfortunately.
Yes.
So it fits, and as an analyst, I have to say it's good. It's a good pickup. Then 4th and 5th, Gligar and Magneton. That's where it went from good to meh. Like Magneton and Gligar, they're not bad mons. They're good. I see them used pretty regularly. They can do what they need to do. They're all right. Diancie, too many weaknesses. I am a huge advocate and fan of Mega Diancie because it's offensive. I do not like Diancie in a defensive role. 150 defenses, so what? You've got 50 HP, too many weaknesses. I don't like it. Golurk it's kind of like a bad to Memon. I don't think it's horrible. I don't really see it used well that often, so I don't know a whole lot about it, like you said. Audino, normal Audino, I just don't like. I don't see normal Audino doing much of anything useful other than a niche role here and there. Zoroark, probably the best pick after Cresselia happened, in my opinion. Zoroark's a really good mon. Virizion has that 4 times weakness. It can be a good mon if you use it right, but it's definitely not. It's the worst of the it's the least important of the 4 Musketeers. I would even say Keldeo is more useful than Virizion, and Keldeo is not very good in League format. But specifically, Terrakion and Cobalion are better than it, and it can be good, but I'm just not I don't think it'll do that great. And Typhlosion it's a bad fire type. We've seen it. We've seen people pick it up before and try and use it well and effectively, and it's just not worked out well. Typhlosion just isn't the fire type that you want to rely on. It's pretty good for a viewer pick, but I don't think it really brings up his team that well. I'd still put it in the bad position.
Yeah, I worry about his knockoff weakness. You know, Cresselia, Gligar, and Magneton can use Eviolite. It invites the knockoff. And sure, you know, he's got and Golurk as well, of course.
The way you said it, you said Cresselia, Gligar, and Magneton can use Eviolite. I knew what you meant by the whole knockoff weakness, Cresselia is psychic, but it sounded like you were saying Cresselia with Eviolite. Can you imagine how disgusting that would be?
Oh, God, no, please. No,
Never.
Absolutely not. How dare you?
All right, do some final thoughts. We got to move on.
Yeah. And then, Golurk doesn't like as well. Yeah, he's got Mega Blastoise who can take it, and Virizion who can actively benefit from it, but I do worry that that's going to be something he has to work out how to deal with. How to deal with knockoff. But yeah, this is Mono. He's tricksy. He's clever. He can make use of this, I think. I think he will. It's still a very threatening team, which is why it's quite high on our list. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you want to go over number 6?
Oh yeah, it's me again. Sorry, I keep getting mixed up on that. Next we have, surprisingly, Baby Eye SS. Despite doing fairly badly last season, his draft has made it up to 6th in our hearts. He almost made it to top 5, but I once again fought for someone and got him up a little higher. We'll talk about next from Shroom's perspective. But we've got SS in 6th, just barely missing the top 5, but he's still up there, you know, top half. That's pretty good, especially given his record last season was like 3-5, with one of those being a forfeit win, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good to be in 6th out of 16, in my opinion. He's got Mega Pinsir. We can start off with his Fire, Water, Grass following is pretty good. Heatran, Starmie, Roserade, more offensive than defensive Mons. Heatran more so defensive than the other two, but still, you know, 4 times weak to ground, 130 base special attack. It wants to be offensive a lot, although it can do really well as defensive as well. So he's got those 3 pretty good. He's got Haxorus. Haxorus plus Mega Pinsir. What is a physical wall? It doesn't exist to Baby Eye's team.
Yeah, that's going to be scary.
Between Flying and Dragon and Close Combat on Mega Pinsir and Earthquake on Haxorus to hit the Seal types and whatnot, it's really hard to find something that can switch into the 2 of them combined. Skuntank, decent defogger. It's not the best at it. Also, Starmie can run Rapid Spin, doesn't really want to. Me and Shroom kind of put up this little... when we were talking about hazard removal, because that's a big part in League format we were using to judge these teams. When you look at hazard removal, you've kind of got like 2 ends of the spectrum. Pokemon that wants to run it, which we use Skarmory as the example. Skarmory likes and wants to run Defog. And Pokemon that don't want to at all. They can if they need to, but they don't want to do it. Starmie is on that end. It can Rapid Spin. It usually does not want to Rapid Spin. It likes to do other things more so. So then he's also got, I think he has 4. Yeah, he has 4 hazard controls. He's got a lot of hazard controls, but they're all kind of like, I don't want to say mediocre because I feel like they're better than that, but they're like not, they're not great. They're on par, I guess you could say. He's got Sand Slash, probably the best hazard control on his team. Sand Slash for Rapid Spin. It likes to do it to an extent, and it can do it pretty well. He's got Granbull, decent Intimidate Mon, not the best fairy, not the worst fairy, in my opinion. I'd put Slurpuff as worst, or Diancie, but Granbull is definitely not the best. Zebstrika, pretty good Mon. Also with its immunities to Grass and Electric can really help out his team. Conkeldurr, again, you know, who needs physical switch-ins when Conkeldurr is around? I think Baby Eye, we have most of the teams have a base average of their total, like all of their base stat totals are averaged, and I think Baby Eye has the highest at 106 physical attack. Hoopa Confined really helps with him needing special attackers, but it is going to bring up something we're going to talk about in a minute. And then Xatu was his viewer pick, gives him Magic Bounce and Defog, more so Magic Bounce, but it's there.
You touched on the Zebstrika having those immunities, which I find that's going to work really well with his hazard removal. When you look at Mega Pinsir, you think, okay, where's his hazard removal? Starmie, Skuntank, Sandslash, which I think is a very good spinner. I really have come to rate Sandslash, and Xatu. So he's got a lot of options going on there. Zebstrika, I think, pairs up very well with them because within that you've got a fair amount of weaknesses to Grass and Electric. If Baby Eye SS can get the right Zebstrika set with the right immunity and the right spinner or defogger, he can really benefit from people trying to take them out. Go into Zeb Striker and get off some big damage on some stuff. So I really look forward to seeing how he's going to use that.
I don't want to be the one to burst the bubble, but the way you described it especially, that's really niche. It's going to be hard to do. I want to see it happen, and it's definitely a possibility that you have to take into account, but that is really niche. And it's going to be hard if it ever... I wouldn't be surprised if that never happens in the entire season. Would not be surprised if it doesn't happen. I want it to, but I could definitely see it not happening. So that is a good point to bring up. But at the same time, you have to look at it the other way, where it's like, it's really unlikely, but it could happen.
It is unlikely. It's something I'm sure that he will want to try. You know, we saw innovative sets from Baby Eye last season. But it's also something that will weigh heavy on the minds of his opponents. And he can use that to his advantage as well.
Yes, I agree. Really quick before we move on, we got about another minute on Baby Eye. I wanted to point out, we talked about his physical offense. He does have a good kind of mitigation with his special offense to try and make up for it. In Hoopa Confined with 150 base special attack, Heatran is 130. Starmie is only 100, but with Stab, Psychic, and Hydro Pump, it kind of brings it up some more. And then Rose Raid is 125. The problems with those is they've got some fairly exploitable weaknesses. Ground is really common. Dark and Ghost are really common, which quad-effective Ground to Heatran, quad-effective Dark and Ghost Pursuit specifically for Hoopa Confined. Makes it harder to utilize them. Rose Raid has the physical defense of a wet paper towel, and will just get torn apart. And then Starmie's probably is probably his best bet for reliable special attack coverage, but it's got the lowest out of those four. It's only base 100. Stab, Hydro Pump, and Psychic hurt, but they're still difficult to use.
Yeah.
Or not difficult to use, but rather it's not as hard hitting as the other two with their, or the other three with their stabs, is what I meant to say.
Yeah. But I mean, Baby Eye, he picked up some really useful, valuable experience last season. He's brought that into the draft. Let's see if he can bring it into his games.
Yep. Let's move on to 5, which I believe is you.
We'll move on to 5. That's going to be me. And at 5 for us is going to be Alex, Onesie Bayonet, and AS Monferno. And oh my god, this team.
This is another one. You would have been, I think you were 6th or 7th, Alex, and I fought for you to get up higher.
We pushed him up. The first 3 picks: Fairy Dragon Steel, Mega Latias, Sylveon, Registeel.
Best.
Bulk. Yes. Almost without a doubt, the best Fairy Dragon Steel that has been selected this season.
Me and Shroom came to that decision together that Mega Latias, Sylveon, Registeel is... we didn't have to debate at all about the Firewater Grass we'll get to later, but in terms of, the 2 most iconic cores are Firewater Grass and then Fairy Dragon Steel, and Alex has the best Fairy Dragon Steel, plus 2 more dragons.
He does, yeah. And you supplement that with Meloetta, who just takes special hits all day. And then you think, oh, okay, so where's he going to get his offense from? Bam. Staraptor, Tyrantrum, Garchomp, Nidoking, Blaziken.
All
Jesus
incredibly hard hitters. Most of them are on the physical side, Tyrantrum and Staraptor. But Nidoking obviously can do either, mostly special. Blaziken can kind of switch between the two, although it usually prefers physical. And Garchomp, again, prefers physical, but can also throw in some Fire Blasts and stuff. And then you've got Mega Latias and Sylveon for your special anyways. It's cool. Let's not forget that little threat sneaking in right there at 115 speed, 90 base attack, Sneasel. Look at him. Look at him there with that, with that Dark and Ice coverage, which honestly he was missing Dark entirely, I think, outside of that. And Ice, he really only had like Ice Beam Nidoking to go with. So I think that was a nice pickup. Yeah.
And then we've got Lantern coming in there. Lantern has proven itself to be a bit of a nuisance. Fairly bulky, can hit sort of hard a little bit with the right investment in the right kind of situation. And then the bench-voted pick is very interesting. Bench-vote pick for Alex was Wobbuffet.
Which he is aptly named Banter.
Of course. Why would he not? Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting. Wobbuffet has its niche, as we all know. It's not drafted very often because people see it as quite easy to sort of build around. But in the right situation, it can be absolutely crucial in taking out a powerful threat. Which, there aren't many powerful threats left because Alex drafted all of them.
Pretty much. I was talking earlier when we got to Honchkrow that, like, Honchkrow and Staraptor, they're both up there. Like, I kind of deviate between the two as my favorite, like, bird type. Staraptor, Reckless Brave Bird, just all of the owl. All of the owl.
Did you say bird type?
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Well, I mean, come on, man. What bird? They all use Brave Bird unless they're Tornadus. That's basically what they are, is bird type.
This is true. But yeah, Alex has got some stupid crazy bulk. He's got some stupid, crazy power, and Lantern. So yeah,
Lantern is one of those. I want to talk on Lantern for a second because Slyro has used it a lot, and I watch Slyro a lot because I'm really close friends with him, so I watch him a fair amount, and more so than a lot of other people that I don't know as well. I try and watch, leagues that I'm invested in, like TBU and PPL. I try and watch most of the people's stuff, but a lot of the times, I'm busy. I end up just focusing on the people that I'm friends with or really know or really like, and Sly is one of those people. He's used Lantern very well, and I don't consider it a top-tier Pokemon at all or like a really good pick. But I can definitely, especially on this team, I'd see it's very well worth having.
Yeah, it's going to have a lot of value for Alex. This is a scary team, crazy bulk, crazy power, triple Dragon Core, and those dragons are Mega Latias, Tyrantrum, and Garchomp.
Well, I mean, it's basically like the double Dragon Core and then Head Smash, to be fair.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And we both, Chaos and I, we both love ourselves a bit of Tyrantrum Head Smash action.
Super Tyrantini bros. I hope that Alex has been in the mountains like we were before our season started, or else he's not going to have a fun time.
I do hope he's training them out. Yeah, Head Smash, of course, high jump kick on Blaziken as well. Icicle Crash Sneasel. It's going to be interesting. He's got a lot of potential with this draft. It can hurt, it can take hits. Let's see how well he uses it. People are going to have to prep hard, and it's going to be difficult to do.
I really look forward to these. This is one of the players I look forward to seeing the matches of the most, to be honest. I'm going to go on to number 4 because we're nearing where we need to start wrapping up, so we've got about 20 more minutes.
Sure.
Next is Trip and the Dallas Staravia in 4th place. The champion from last season, not really taking that into account, but his team, oh my goodness, these first 6 picks, and then the 2 after that aren't that bad, and then the last one is garbage. But Trip has Megalop, which, as we've seen, if you know about the PPL, Megalop, I believe, was Megalop MVP in both divisions of this season of the PPL?
Yeah, I think across both divisions it went 34-2.
Yeah, Megalop is insane. Really good mon. Back that up with Mew, who he got first round. It's for versatility and whatnot. Really helps it out. Switches into psychic types and whatnot. These got Tangrowth, really bulky, decent attack, Regenerator mon. Entei, as we know, great fire type. Vaporeon, great bulky water. Honestly, Vaporeon's probably my go-to after Melodic. Kyurem, not the best dragon, but a really good dragon. It's proven itself over several leagues. I've seen a lot of it because, like I said, I watched Slyro's league matches a lot. He used it very well. It's a very good mon. Electros, that was like the top tier right there. Kyurem to Mega Lopunny. Electros, a good mon. It's not as high up for me as the others are, but Electros is still a good mon. It's kind of fallen to the wayside a bit nowadays in league format. Me and Shroom kind of agreed on because it doesn't fit into the stereotype of fast electric. But it still has its place. It can still do things. Then he's got Bronzong, not the best steel type, but it's decent. It's good at what it does. Then he's got a coffee table. Avalugg is just kind of when he needs to prop his Bronzong up because it's tired of floating, he can just set it on the coffee table right there. Then he's got I believe Bronzong was on his bench. He moved it for Togetic. He had Togetic. I'm not a huge fan of Togetic, but you need a fairy. There aren't many fairies. I understand taking it. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's pretty bad in my opinion. It comes in, it wish passes, or it heal bells, or it just immediately baton passes. Then he has Umbreon on his bench, which Shroom can kind of contest. He used Umbreon, was not a huge fan. I don't like Umbreon. It's a huge momentum killer. It comes out on the field, and then it just kind of sits there. And it's really hard to follow up. I am not a fan of Umbreon. Shroom, anything to say on Umbreon?
Well, yeah, I didn't get as much use out of Umbreon, not nearly as much use as I thought I would, but at the same time, I had Mega Ordno to back it up. Now, Umbreon is going to be one of Trip's main sort of clerics and wish passes. He does have Togetic, who has the added benefit of being able to defog, and is probably his best option for hazard removal. Avalugg is difficult to rate. It's difficult to rate Avalugg.
It's garbage. I rated it for you. You're welcome.
But there it is. But Umbreon, I think he'll get more use of it than I did.
Hopefully. Again, every time I down a mon or write it off, like his Veerapick is Moltres. I've sort of written it off because I've never seen it used very well, and I hope he uses it really well. But I write mons off, and I want to be proven wrong so that I can start saying they're good. But you've got to prove me wrong.
But yeah, the rest of his team is really very strong. Megalop and Mew is a really good combination. Mew is not always forced to run defog defensive set. He does have Togetic, he does have Avalugg. They are hazard removers, at a base level. Tangrowth, Entei?
Entei. My boy, Entei, along with Raiki and Suiki.
Of course.
Led by Hoey.
But yes. And Lugi.
Lugi, we don't talk about Lugi.
And Celebi. Oh wait, that works. But yeah, I mean, Tangrowth, Entei, Vaporeon, a pure Fire Water Grass core of very high quality.
This is probably I didn't think about it until right now, but I'm sorry to interrupt you. The Fire Water Grass you just mentioned, I didn't think about it until now, but that's probably second place.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kyurem can be devastating. It's very powerful. I think people sleep on it because, they expect the big Kyurem threat to be Kyurem Black, which, no one has, of course. But Kyurem can be devastating. Electros, as Chaos has mentioned, doesn't fall into the category of the fast electric, which is just an archetype of the format, and people always want one. But Electros has two things on those generic fast electric types that others don't have. Ground immunity, admittedly some of them do have that, and that massive move pool which escapes a lot of electric types. Electros can be very versatile with its move pool, physical, special, all of those things. And what I like about this draft is he's got Electros and Mew, both of whom can run Volt Switch and U-Turn. He's got a lot of Baton Pass, and who loves getting initiative? Mega Lopunny and Entei. They love it.
Kyurem also to an extent, because it's got a fair amount of weaknesses with fighting Dragon Rock. It also likes free switches.
Absolutely, and this is a team that's going to force switches. If I could say anything for it, it would be to have a spike setter. If he had a spike setter,
oh my goodness,
would be complete.
I didn't even consider that until you just said it, but now that you say that, that sounds amazing. If he could have spikes or T-spikes up, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, this was something that Frito did very well last season. He had Mega Lopunny. I believe he also had Entei.
Wait, Frito did something well last season?
He did. You're not wrong.
Wow.
I know. But no, he did that well with his draft. He had Mega Lopunny and Entei. He had Hazards out the wazoo. He had Spikes. He had Stealth Rock. He had a lot of Baton Pass and a lot of initiative. And it served him very well. If Trip could get some kind of spike stacker, I think this team would be complete.
Exactly. And I think that now that you mention that, that's probably why he's not like third or second.
Yeah.
That could have definitely put him up past third. Speaking of third, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh no, are you odds? I thought you're odds. I'm even.
I am odds. I was saying go for it to me. Congratulations, you passed my test. So in at third, we do in fact have Skyrander and the Gothenburg Garchomps, the newly renamed Gothenburg Garchomps, last season's runner-up finalist who lost out, of course, to Trip. Skyrander's team is... The reason it's quite so highly rated is kind of why it was low rated last season, weirdly enough. We rated him quite low last season in the preseason power rankings because of how stupidly offensive it was without having necessarily too many switch-ins. Now, Skyrander very nicely proved that that's how he plays, and he plays it very well. So whilst he's done something quite similar here, he's ranked quite highly for it.
Also,
let's talk about the fact. Yeah, let's talk about Volcanion. Where are the switch-ins? There are a few teams that have them, not all of them.
A lot of the teams that do have the switch-ins only get that switch-in if Steam Eruption doesn't burn.
That's true. That's very true. Volcanion has been seeing a bit more use now, of course, now with its release. A few more leagues are allowing it in, and people are starting to draft it very early. Skyrander is one of them, and it supplements Mega Sceptile very well indeed. Volcanion does not like taking electric, ground, rock. Mega Sceptile is immune to one of them, and neutral to Earthquake, but it's a Sceptile, so it will probably be 2 KO.
It resists Earthquake.
It does, on paper. It resists Earthquake. So it's nice to be able to have that suspicion. And of course, with Mega Sceptile, given just dint of its typing, it'll take one and then outspeed whoever it's against.
Yep.
Thundersterion, the power. Also immune to ground. And electric.
And electric, yeah.
Donphan, immune to electric. I have a bit of a problem with the fact... Yeah, and it'll take the rock attack. So he's got these resistances with Volcanion. Volcanion supplements Mega Sceptile's weaknesses very well as well. My only problem with those three is that, electric, those are his main reasons for getting them, as far as pairing up Volcanion is concerned. But electric, love running Hidden Power Ice, and all those three are weak to it. So he'll have to try and get around that in some way. But the rest of his team, Donphan for spinning is a very nice option. Sizzle for defog equally so. Frostlass is cool. It sets up spikes. Drapion, good man. Good man, Sky. Well done. Thank you for picking up Drapion again. We used to talk about that last season. And, Slowbro is there. He's got some nice bulk for once. He didn't have too much bulk last time. that Slowbro can do that. And whilst he may not be too familiar with running Volcanion, as many of us aren't, it's new, he's managed to supplement that with getting some mons he is very familiar with using. Stoutland, he's obviously very familiar with that. Heracross was an MVP for Sky last season. He used it very effectively, and he's got it back again this season as well. So he's built his team well with mons he knows how to use, and the stupid power Volcanion, the immunities that he's got going along with that as well. So very offensive, but that's how he plays.
I think one of the things about Volcanion being picked up, it's obviously a good mon. No one can doubt that. We've seen how it's been doing in the OU ladder. It's been out for a while now. It's becoming one of those mons that you see constantly on the OU ladder. Not just because it's new, but because it's good. And not all of the times, Keldeo, for example, does good on OU translate to good in draft format. But I think Volcanion is also going to be good in draft format because it is hard to deal with this thing, especially when that thing, it's got a decent move pool. It knows what to run against you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult. And Sky, one of the biggest things I was worried about with Volcanion was the team surrounding it. That was my biggest worry, especially because, if you pick up Volcanion, probably don't want to get another bulky water along with it, even though Volcanion is more an attacker than a defender. But he's drafted very well around it, I feel. He's got a very, maybe not the perfect team for Volcanion, but a good one.
Yeah. And my final thought on Volcanion and its pairings, offensively, we've talked about Volcanion having its partners that can take the hits it doesn't want to. Offensively, Volcanion can hit a lot of mons. Doesn't particularly want to deal with bulky water. And who are the two surrounding it? Mega Sceptile and Thunderous Therian.
They love dismantling bulky water.
They do.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. But overall, we did put a lot of focus on Volcanion, which I kind of didn't want to do going into it, but it's hard not to, because, a lot of limelight is on Volcanion right now. Until Sun and Moon comes out, it's the newest Pokemon we've got, and it's not just new, it's good, and I feel like his team works well with it. I'm also really excited to see Mega Sceptile used well. Heracross, I liked seeing him use it well last season, the few times I watched him use it. And Gardevoir is a great mon. Donphan, both of those are like MVPs for me. I love both of those mons. And it's just, he's got a lot of good mons that can synergize, maybe not perfectly, but well, and I look forward to seeing how he uses it.
Absolutely.
All right,
well, shall we move on to number 2?
Yeah, let's move on to number 2. Here we go. Number 2, we have the best Firewater Grass core there is, Slyro and the Pittsburgh Pyroar. My good buddy, he's not up here just because we're good friends with him in PPL and whatnot. He is here because his draft deserves it. Yeah. Mainly because of these first 4 picks. Mega Venusaur, Manaphy, Arcanine, and then just in case that wasn't enough, Porygon 2. Just
how do you break that?
How do you even begin prepping? This is one of the teams where I would start prepping for it and then give up, and then the day before just be like, I'm gonna lose. Let's just figure out what I can do.
Yeah.
It's so impossible to break through. He kind of had. We talked about earlier how Mono kind of started out great, went meh, and then went bad. Sly mixed up a bit. He went amazing, went kind of bad, and then kind of okay, good, meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had those first 4, Mega Vena, Manaphy, Arcanine, Porygon 2, and then he got Slurpuff because he said he wanted to use it. I guess I can understand that. Slurpuff for me is probably one of the worst fairies down there with Togetic and Diancie, normal Diancie, and I just don't like it. But if he can make it work, more on him. Usually, we also mentioned this before, when you get one core Firewater Grass, the other one that you try and get, which is Fairy Dragon Steel, normally suffers. His suffered pretty bad. He's got Slurpuff and Flygon. Flygon is okay at defogging. Its stats aren't that bad, but it's...
Wait, whoa, hang on. What do you mean defog?
I meant U-turn.
Flygon U-turns.
My mistake. I'm sorry. Flygon isn't... It's definitely not the worst, but it's just not that good. And then Slurpuff, again, pretty bad fairy in my opinion. Cobalion is okay. But the biggest problem with Cobalion is if you look at Sly's draft so far, all of his mons are neutral and or weak to Psychic, and his Steel type is half fighting. Then he picks up Alakazam, kind of helps with it, except for the fact that, it's even worse than Sneasel physically defensively, I think. It's really bad physically defensively, so, as soon as it goes down, he has no resists for strong Psychic types. That could be a big problem, especially because he has Mega Venusaur. Porygon 2, being Porygon 2 can kind of deal with it, but if it gets weakened a little too much, which rarely happens to Porygon 2, but if it does happen, it can be trouble. He has Electivire, not the worst electric type. I'm not a huge fan of Electivire. It's a good mon on paper. It's rarely used well and rarely used. Shroom, you mentioned before when we were debating if Sly should be first or second, that Electivire is, it's a good mon. Also, I just saw that the name of the mon is Arbormon, so he's now first in my heart forever because that's a Digimon reference. That's a Season 4 Digimon reference. Absolutely love that. But it can be a good mon if it's used well. You know more about it. You go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll focus on these last four picks, because I don't want to talk about the fact he's got Arcanine yet again. Sly, I do want to put you last, and hopefully one day I'll be able to. Unfortunately, I can't deny that that is an amazing Firewater Grass core, but let's let someone have Arcanine, please. Yeah, Eva, one of these mons that should be good by its stats. It's low, as far as tiers go, it's low tier, not because of its stats, but because of its usage. It just doesn't get used. But many of us in this kind of immediate community, we do want to see someone use Electivire well. We do want to see it get some KOs and start proving itself. So hopefully Slycombe will want to do that. And then he follows up with these last three mons that they have their potential. Omastar has great potential not only as a Shell Smash sweeper, but as a hazard stacker.
Also,
it'll be good to see exactly how he uses it. Sorry,
despite being rock water, like 125 base defense with 70 HP and then 70 SPDF, that's not bad. As long as its weaknesses as long as you don't let its weaknesses be super exploited, it can be defensive. I've seen it happen on the ladder before. Also, 115 special attack is nice.
Yeah, very much so. And what's Omastar weak to? Electric, super weak to grass, fighting, ground. Most of those will be eaten up by Mega Venusaur. And then we follow up. He's got Hitmonchan, which we've seen has put in a lot of work in leagues. It has some very potent setup. Once again, semi-defensive setup.
Decent rapid spinner.
Yep, potential good rapid spinner. To go along with Flygon, the U-turn, defogger. and then Ambipom, one of the strongest bench voted picks.
My boy Jim.
Ambipom. What?
My boy Jim. Ambipom.
Oh. Okay. You nickname your Ambipom's Jim?
Yeah, because it destroyed Jim that one time.
Oh, nice. But yeah, Ambipom, Jim the Ambipom, which I don't think he's called Jim, but he should. Yeah, Ambipom has put in work in several ways. It's a sleeper mon. You can't mess around with Ambipom. It's decently powerful. It's super quick. Base 115, I think.
Yeah, base 115, base 100 attack.
And of course, it's a very nice team supporter with sort of fake out, U-turn, knockoff. So many options to baton pass. It can baton pass all kinds of things. Let's talk about Nasty Plot. Nasty Plot Ambipom. Not bad. Not bad at all.
I did that once, and if I hadn't gotten confused, it would have swept one. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Sly started amazingly, fell off a little bit to the middle, and then managed to pick it up the end with some pretty interesting potential picks. I look forward to seeing him use this team, that gross core, and those last four. #Boz.
It's definitely going to be good. I'm expecting a lot from Sly. Also, something we also mentioned with Eric that I'll mention with Sly as well. Sly has a lot of experience. TBU last season, PPL, some off-season stuff that I don't know the names of. He's been in the league play game for a while. He started out, we can all agree, season 1 Sly wasn't the best player, but he's gotten a lot better. I think he's consistently placed 4th out of 12 in the last 2 PPL seasons. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. He's consistently been improving. He's one of the most improved players since he started playing format. So, yeah.
Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on to
number one. Move on to number 1, and I would suspect that this guy didn't think he would be number 1.
Oh, I can't wait to see him see that he's a number 1, because he's going to be so shocked.
This is Jim, Potato Jim, our very own Irish resident, and the Meath Mamoswines. Now, as we've gone through these teams, we picked up the good points, we picked up the bad points. This is a team which has just so few potential weak links, if any.
The reason he ended up at first, actually, when we had the top 4, I think we decided to move SS. Originally, we had like the top 5 we had for teams. We put like a rough list together. We had SS, Trip, Sly, and Jim, and I think Sky or Mono, one or the other. We ended up moving SS down a bit for Alex because I convinced Shroom that Alex's team was better than he thought. And then we immediately thought, well, I think Jim will probably be 4th. Let's look at Jim. We sat there, talked about Jim for about 5 to 10 minutes, and decided, well, I don't know where to put him. Let's look at the others. And by the end of it, Jim ended up in 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he built this team around Mega Aggron. That was his mega pick, very difficult to take down. He was then going to pick Sylveon, but then saw Latios was free and went, I'll take Latios. What that allows him to do is then pick up Florges to complete the Fairy Dragon Steel, use a fairy that he has used in every single league format he's ever been in, so he knows how to use it. It supports Mega Aggron very well. Latios completes the trio, very offensive. And then he continues on. Let's pick up Shaman. Want a Warbreaker? Let's pick up Terrakion. Let's complete the Firewater Grass with Rotom Heat and Blastoise. Very nice spin option there. Rotom Heat can get initiative. Let's supplement it with some ridiculous power. Raw power, Pangoro. He's got so many options to get into Pangoro with potential sort of mid to slow U-turn / Volt Switch. You know, Rotom Heat sitting in the base 80s. Mesprit is base 80 as well with U-turn. He can get those in. They will force switches. He can U-turn into the likes of Pangoro, Zygarde, Mismagius, something like Latios, Terrakion.
Porygon Z.
Porygon Z.
Nothing wants
goodness.
to take Choice Specs Porygon Z Tri-Attack. 135 base special attack, Tri-Attack stab? No.
Adaptability.
Adaptability too? No.
Yeah.
Just no. If there's something on the opponent's team that has to be dead for Jim to win, Hyper Beam. You sacrifice Porygon Z, that Mon is probably dead unless it's Steel Rock Aggron.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got crazy bulk, really good core work. He actually initially had Azelf. Excuse me. But he got rid of that to bring in Mesprit. I think that was a good decision.
I agree.
I love using Azelf. And
Same
I
here.
do.
I
Mesprit,
love Azelf
bulkier.
as well.
Yeah, and Mesprit, however, is bulkier. It does similar jobs for utility. You know, it doesn't get Explosion, but it does get a very similar moveset, and it actually gets Ice Beam. Why doesn't Azelf get Ice Beam? Game Freak, sort it out.
Healing Wish gave him another Healing Wish option.
He's got a lot of Cleric options going on here.
Healing Wish is one of the best things to have on your team when you have Mega Ag. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Just imagine the heart drop.
When you've gotten Mega Ag down to like 12% and he dies when he switches into Spikes because you've got a layer of Spikes up, but then Healing Wish.
Healing Wish in. just so demoralizing. So demoralizing. He's got, you know, Wish and Wet as well on Florges. He's got Aromatherapy going on there. Heal Bell on a few mons. Mismagius was his bench voted pick, one of the stronger ones of the round as well, so he even managed to do well there.
Offensive Ghost is really hard to deal with in League format, and Mismagius is good with it.
And especially when people aren't picking up Gengar because it's fairly high priced, Mismagius is a really nice cut price option. Slightly lower stats, but it does a very similar job and has even more utility, we would say, with the likes of Heal Bell and Healing. No, it doesn't get Healing Wish, we talked about that, but gets Heal Bell. So yeah, this probably one of the most complete teams, I think.
Very well. Probably one of the few things we can say bad about it is the speed. He's got 110 as his highest, and then a 108 and a 105. And those are his only things above 100. Shaman is also 100. Everything beneath that falls in between like 90 and 50. It's pretty varied. But aside from not having a Mon that's like high up speed, his speed tiers are high enough to where higher tier speed Mons have to worry about not being able to run Adamant over stuff like, Adamant and Modest. They normally like to, Mons like Mega Lopunny and Tornadus like to run that because they can outspeed the entire other team. In this case, they'd have to rely more on Jolly and Timid.
Yeah. And, whilst speaking of Mega Lopunny, much as with Trip's team, Jim's does not have the likes of Spikes, I don't think. You know, you're just looking at Stealth Rock. But I don't think this is going to affect him as much as it might affect Trip. You know, Trip has something like Mega Lopunny who really wants Spike support. You know, Jim, his team doesn't necessarily need Spike support. He's got some decent offensive setup. He's got the likes of Pangoro and Terrakion who just hit hard enough as it is. So yeah, this, I think, is one of the most complete teams. Jim does not necessarily... Sorry, go on.
It's really hard to say bad things about it. That's how you know it's a good draft. Because most of the other drafts we went through, we found a specific thing like Sly in the mid-range, started to make some bad picks that aren't that good. Flygon, Slurpuff aren't going to do much for him in the season. Trip didn't have Spikes to help him. There were some other things we said about him. Sky built well around Volcanion, but he has a trouble with Electric Ice, which is a very common type matchup with HP Ice and whatnot. There was always, usually one or two specific things we could point out and say, this is going to be one of their biggest problems in the season. For Jim, I really don't see any of those bigger problems. He just about has something for everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, even if you're looking at a base idea of weaknesses, he's got a little bit of a pronounced weakness to Fairy, but Mega Aggron is there.
Florges
Mega Aggron doesn't care about fairies.
If
Rotom
Mega
Heat.
Aggron can't take the specially offensive fairies, then Florges can, even if it's neutral, and then Rotom Heat too. Yeah, it takes Fairy just fine.
Yeah,
he's pretty much got all of his bases covered. Also, Rotom Heat, Blastoise, and Shaman, probably the third best Firewater Grass Core. Really good there. Shaman is an amazing Mon.
as Chaos mentioned earlier, you know, once you pick one of your cores, the other one maybe sometimes suffers because you're picking it a little bit later. Not to any great extent here, you know.
No, Jim has great on both, and he didn't even pick them back to back. He had Terrakion in the middle there, which is an amazing mod.
And sure, his Firewater Grass doesn't necessarily have the raw bulk of Mega Aggro on Florges, but it's still got really good bulk and can be supported by Wish from Florges. So it's going to be tough to take down this draft. We just have to hope, I guess, that Jim can do it justice.
I really want to see this team do amazingly well, because this one, like I said, we had it like in our top 5, and we're looking around 4 and 3. But when you and me sat down and actually like talked it out, we're both. This is a completely unanimous agreement. There's no like me trying to bring Shroom up or Shroom trying to bring me up. We both agreed this is the #1 team for TBU this season.
Very much so. Very much so.
But
yeah. We just both said that exactly the same time.
Nice.
Oh
See,
so
this is why we're so good together.
I think so.
But anyways,
for God's sake, you go.
No, okay, I'll do it, and then I'll let you go into the final outro. That is gonna be it for the post-draft power rankings. As we said, the Union News / power rankings, they're going to be kind of merged this coming season, so it'll be a little different. We'll still keep the one singular list, but it'll be done a little differently. You guys will see that. We'll go more into depth of it after the first week and we get the first one recorded. But let us know what you thought about the teams, if you think we were fair in what we said, if we were mistaken on anything, what your rankings would be if you differ from us in some way. And Shroom, go ahead and get us out of here.
Yeah, that's pretty much all that needs to be said. These are, of course, opinions, and we'd love to hear yours, as Chaos said. So, leave your suggestions down in the comment section below, and, let us know what you think. But we are going to get out of here. We have rambled on for a fair amount of time.
Hey, we got it in under an hour and a half.
Nice. That's what we want. Yep. So, look forward to the battles on our coaches' channels. I'm sure they'll be linked in the description. They'll be going up probably sometime in the not-too-distant future. We'll be back probably next week with the power rankings and wrap up following week 1. But until then, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next time. So take care, TBU fans. Goodbye.
Farewell.